got a new piece of equipment that I want to talk about. It's yet another resonator. You may remember, if you've watched my other videos, that I've talked about the Soundstone, which is a resonator, and I've compared it to the Ebow, which is my personal favorite resonator, and I've even talked about the Ebow when I was reviewing the Picasso bow, which is an actual stringed bow that you can play the acoustic guitar with. After I had ordered the Picasso bow, I started getting advertisements for other resonators. I didn't even know they existed, which is where the Soundstone came in. And you can watch my review of that. It wasn't bad, but I definitely found that the Ebow was superior. This is another resonator that I just got. This is the TC Electronic Aeon, and I'm curious to see how this performs. Similar to the Soundstone, there's not a lot of junky packaging involved, so pretty good with the environmental footprint reduction. A little bit of plastic involved there, but otherwise fairly low packaging. There's a small little instruction booklet. Unlike the Soundstone, this actually comes with its own battery. I don't know how awesome the battery is, how great the battery life is, but it's nice that it actually comes with one, so you can just throw that in there right away and not worry that you maybe don't have a spare or you don't have a current battery at home. Once you've removed the little tape that comes on top of the battery, you can just throw that right in there. It doesn't seem to say which side is positive or negative, but from trial and error, it does feel like the positive side should be lined up with the longer side of the unit, because then it clips in easily, and you can also see that the device works when you push the button, it lights up. The design's a little different to the Soundstone, which is also a little different to the Ebow. Both the Soundstone and the Ebow, you kind of hold them between thumb and forefinger and then place those tracks along the strings. So the string that you're resonating should be in line with the inside of those two tracks, and each of those two tracks will then anchor on the strings either side of the string you're resonating. The TC Electronic Aeon has a similar track design, and I would imagine most resonators have that. So you've got the two tracks that you anchor on the two strings, either side of the string that you're resonating, and then in the middle you've got that resonating device. So with this one, it's more vertical than the kind of horizontal Ebow and Soundstone. So I guess you could still hold it thumb and forefinger, but it feels a little bit more vertically placed, which might be interesting in terms of the accuracy with which you can position it over the pickup and over the part of the string that you want to position it over. So that's an activator deactivator button. It's not a hold and use button. You push it once, it's active. You push it again, it's deactive. That's a little handy because the Ebow has a similar effect. When you actually have it on, you see by the blue light that it is on. The Soundstone likewise has a little red LED on the side. It's a little heavier than the Soundstone. It's roughly the same weight as the Ebow. I kind of like the feel of it. It looks a little bit like these trendy home kitchen garbage cans that you might use. It's like a miniature version of that in terms of the stainless steel feel to the outside, slightly burnished. It does look a little bit more futuristic and space agey than the sort of quainter Ebow feel. But it feels pretty good. So I'm gonna try this and see what it sounds like. I'm curious to see whether this works well on the acoustic as well as the electric. We saw that the Soundstone maybe wasn't as easy to get a good sound on the acoustic. My experience is the Ebow is pretty good on the acoustic. So I'm curious to see how this guy compares. I wasn't intending to do an A/B test between the Soundstone and the Ebow in my last resonator review video, but in playing around with them and coming up with a demo song, it quickly became an A/B test because I quickly found that I was comparing the two of them in my mind. So that's kind of how the video ended up playing out. So full disclosure, this one may also be. So far, the Ebow remains my king resonator. Let's see if this knocks it off the perch. Okay, so let's have a look and see what this sounds like on the acoustic guitar. Wow. The first thing I notice is when I put it on the string, it just slides right in there, and it kind of gets stuck because it's so narrow. it's not, well, it's not that it's so narrow, it's just minimally narrower than the Ebow, but it's narrow enough that it can slip in between and get stuck, and it has that little ridge there, which then gets caught on the strings when you're trying to pull it out. So instantly kind of feeling like a little bit of a design flaw. Wow, that's actually pretty easy to get a sound. But I'm noticing that I'm struggling to get, oh, there we go, struggling a little bit to get a sound on the unfretted string. It's still not the easiest, but it definitely is easier than I found the Soundstone. It doesn't feel any easier than using the Ebow on the acoustic, and if I'm honest, the TC Electronic Aeon seems to have a bit more punch, a little more power to it, so it vibrates the string a bit more, so that seems to give more volume, certainly on the acoustic. But there we go again, it's gotten stuck. So that's not a cool design element. Tend to use these that much, resonators, on the acoustic guitar. So really for me where they come to life is electric, where you can add a little extra touch and feel in terms of reverb, echo, delay, chorus, you name it, and that's where they really bring special feeling. So I'm not necessarily hinging my whole opinion on how they work on the acoustic, but I definitely wanted to compare because some people do use these on the acoustic, so I wanted to include here, and also for myself get a sense of, well, how does it compare in the acoustic to the Ebow and Soundstone and what have you. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my electric, use my looper pedal maybe to get us a little bit of background track that I can solo over and just experiment and see. The thing I'm really curious about is, does this thing slip in between the strings on the electric and get caught, and does that happen on the electric the same way that it happens on the acoustic? So my honest appraisal after playing with this for less than an hour is that this is definitely better than the Soundstone in terms of ease of use and how quickly you can begin to get familiar with how to hold it and what kind of sounds you can get from it. Definitely feels a little more powerful in how it resonates the strings and the Ebow. I still feel, maybe because I'm biased and maybe because I've played the Ebow for so long, that it's a little easier to be accurate with the Ebow. But even still, as you can see in the demo song, there were times when I wasn't picking up a sound on the Ebow either. So any issues with quickly, accurately starting and attacking the sound without too much of a harsh intro, they're not that different with the Aeon from the Ebow. So they're sort of neck and neck in that respect. The key difference is that the Aeon seems a little more powerful. So while I'm more familiar with the Ebow and feel I can get a better palette out of it, this is not far behind. This is definitely something I'm going to keep on experimenting with and playing with and trying out. Definitely would love to bring this to the recording studio at some point. Definitely going to bring it to practice space. Probably going to see if I can use it at live gigs. So with that, I'm sure I'll get more used to it. And after just playing for an hour over my looper pedal with a bunch of effects, at the end of less than an hour, I felt pretty good about the sounds I was getting. I didn't feel the same inclination to bring the Ebow in just to show how much better it was than the Soundstone, even though, like I said in that video, I'm not slating the Soundstone. It wasn't bad, it just had some limitations. The thing I talked about when I was demoing this in the acoustic guitar, where you've got this weird lip and it's slightly narrower than the Ebow, and where it was getting a little caught between the strings, that did happen on the electric, not that much. So I would imagine as you get used to the device, it happens less and less. I was recently looking at some of the stuff online on a YouTube channel called Chords of Orion. Just came up in my feed as a recommended video, and he was reviewing some of these resonators too, and I was fascinated. I thought, wow, this is somebody else who's actually played around with some of these things. I'd love to know if he's found the same sorts of experiences that I found. Check out his channel, by the way, Chords of Orion. This guy can really play with these things. One thing I was super inspired by is how easily he was able to move from string to string. This is easy to plant on a string, and then you just use that one string to glide up and down and have your whole melody there. But changing strings with this can be done, but it takes some practice. And if you want to see how it's done, check out this guy's channel and search for Joyo. That's another resonator device. I'll be reviewing one of those soon. I've got one just arriving in the mail. But if you see in that video how easily he changes the strings with the Ebow, so he can actually play much more of a wider range of sounds, it's very impressive. I tried it myself today, a little tricky, but with some practice, I'd love to get better at that. I found that's a bit harder to do with the Aeon than it is with the Ebow. But again, I'm a beginner at that technique. So overall, pretty impressed with the TC Electronic Aeon. It retails for about $69. I'll include the link down below to Amazon where I picked mine up if you want to check one out. So that's a little cheaper than the Ebow, where I'm finding they're retailing for about $99. So it's a little more expensive than the Soundstone, but even still under $100. And as I mentioned, that kind of burnished metal box, it seems really well built and very robust, despite the fact that the battery's hanging out, like the innards are exposed after some kind of grievous war wound. But other than that, it feels nice, it has a nice heft to it, feels robust. So I definitely recommend you go and check one out. So I hope you liked the little song I put together, and if you like what you see, go ahead and click the subscribe button and click the little bell so that you're notified when I post new content. So thanks again for watching.